noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and support you guys extend my way. From the Cora, gracias. And also, before I get into the topic today, my apologies if I don't sound like myself today. As those know, I did chemo today and everything went well, but I have to go through the headaches of it, right? But regardless, I wanted to upload something for you guys, so this will be a short one, you could say, right? Today I want to touch on something that I've been asked numerous of times via Instagram, right? Which is, hey homie, I'm a resident. What happens to me in the system? Are the camaradas gonna look at me as all the rest of the camaradas, or is it true? Because there's false information out there, right? From those people, I always say you gotta watch out when they get out. They're poison, right? They're trying to paint themselves to be something that it just ain't, right? But anyways, that's what I want to circle around today, right? But as always, I'm gonna put it with a personal experience, right? So I want to take you back 2017. I believe so, right? When I was with Sana had Al Soldado, he had a lot of loves for, right? I wouldn't even put him like Sana Soldado, right? Nevertheless, that's what he was doing things with a lot, right? The homie Looney Olomar from Santana, right? He knew a lot of people, so he was able to spread the web, right, for the Baileys on the streets. You know, not just Sana, but Big Joe and G.I. Joe. He was liked by many, right, that were on the yard with us. Because again, if you put something in his hands, he was able to get it out and, you know, direct it to where it needed to go. So, nevertheless, I'll take you back to a little incident that we had. Now, let me backtrack a little bit, right? The homie was from Santana. He grew up in the barrio of F Troop, but he never got jumped in. Nevertheless, as I mentioned, he had a placazo, right? Of Looney. His real name is Lomar, 'cause he's half and half. On the streets, according to himself, he was considered from F Troop, right? And he didn't mind it. Nevertheless, he never got jumped in, right? So he was a resident, what we call a resident, right? So, anyways, fast forward, we're on the yard. Again, he liked to move, right? He was a hustler. On the streets, he had a lot of people that liked him, point blank, right? Respected him for whatever reasons are his reasons, right? He was a famous homie, real cool. And there was a couple incidents. For example, one was with some homies from East Lowe's, right? That tried to minimize him for being a resident, you could say, right? Again, he was at par, right, as a camarada. And nevertheless, he was, like I said, a highlight camarada for his wiggles, right? So, you know how that goes inside prison, right? You're just a resident. I'm from so and so and so and so and so and so. So to end the discussion of it, right, with words, throughout my time, I seen a lot of homies that were just residents to an extent, right? Because they didn't play the funk or fake the funk, right? By going in claiming something they didn't righteously get jumped into. Nevertheless, that don't take the finger off of them growing up in the neighborhood, them knowing the camaradas from a hood, real good, right? Families, whatever, however that goes, right? Just it never came for him to get jumped in, either by his decision or the neighborhood's decision, right? But anyways, when this happened, the homie was a quiet one. He just laid back and allowed Big Joe to answer him. And all that you go in with your neighborhood as a badge of sureño-ness is a lie. That's why I hear things on YouTube or wherever, right? That oh, that's a homie from up north. Oh, that's a resident. That's a homie from out of state. It's no difference. Point blank, the camaradas from out of state, up north, Mexico, uh, you know, resident, whatever. Once they're inside programming for the causa, which, as you guys know, this stands for Pilis, there is no difference. You see, when this happened, Joe went up to the camaradas and told him, how long have you been doing time? The camaradas, of course, they bucked down serio with Joe, and they told him, like, nah, senora, whatever, right? His third time. And they go, you're acting like a straight fish, you know? And his reply was, don't you know that neighborhood trip stays at the door once you hit county jail? It don't exist. It's a myth. All they care about is when you reach a place, are you a camarada? And if you're part of the causa, as whatever you may be, that don't put roadblocks in your career. A resident can climb up that ladder just as quick as a vato from a neighborhood. You know, you just gotta watch out for those that tend to separate and minimize gente with no cause that it don't exist. Like in this case, right? And a warning came like, I ever hear you on the yard downplaying somebody for not being from a neighborhood or being out of state, specifically in the feds, right? Because there's a lot of camaradas from out of state or whatever. I want to go ahead and have tips put on you. You guys know what I mean, as a regulation, discipline. Basically, just smacked their ears back, right? That they were in the wrong. And sure, they were. As days went on, there was a little incident over, usual stuff in prison, which was a papel, right? A paper of chapopote with a couple woods, right? The woods were real close to Sana. They were skinheads from OC, so Sana was doing his things. It's impossible to know what the Pilis is doing behind the scenes, right? And nevertheless, though, when it happened inside, and they sent the homie Looney to, estos vatos ya pasaron los 20 días. Then 20 days, so go ahead and collect that for me. So, as a side buster, you could say I went with the homie because, well, you guys get it, right? Things happen, as you guys can see. The homie went under, and even the skin just felt some type of way, right? Because it was well known that the camarada was, he was a camarada, period, but, you know, he never got jumped in. So it's played out in prison. It plays out, right? Time and time again, but it never ends well, right? It went from doing a favor from Sana to it going up, over $50. And no weapons were used on either side, right? Because it wasn't expected, to be sincere. It should have been expected, but the angle it took, it was just a surprise, right? But there are things that are happening and we should have known. And the two battles from OC, they sat. What I mean by sat, we took off. Looney on one, myself on another one. Then mother vatos alarm hit, they sat just like that. And when we're on the ground, the vatos were like, we're not supposed to start a war. You guys are gonna get in trouble, and all this side busting. I myself, I just I was on the ground laid out, right? By that time they had already slapped the cuffs, you could say, on us, right? And I just turned my face. There's no need for all that extra talk, right? Especially when people they slip up and they try to throw the ball on the next man, right? But anyways, again, it was in their room. Too many eyes saw things, right? Things were gonna flare out. They were gonna come out the way they should, as they always do in prison within time. And they got out. To our surprises, them two vatos. I'm not gonna disrespect, but they went with Chino from San Diego, right? And those that know Chino, he loves his vitamina and avena, right? So they played him on a pocket, and Chino himself tried to press an issue, right? But when push came to shove, it was never an issue. Them saying it was a funny issue again. It had to do with Homeboy being arrested, right? And basically saying Homeboy got to the woods collecting in a bad way, which was lies, right? I was standing next to him when things happened, and my palabras always been good, regardless, right? But I didn't even have the opportunity to ask. You see, like I said, the homie Looney, he had many, many years doing things for not just Sana, right? But for other Pilis. These vatos had already gotten their ears smacked back because they were set tripping on the homie. It happens, right? I'll be honest with everybody. I told Looney to basically to ask to make it a personal issue and call them vatos out to a cell and one by one, with pieces, go ahead and dance, right? Respect is always out like two avenues, either given or taken. That's just me. And he would have had Joe backing him up because Joe seen it firsthand, right? First off, the white boys should not even have no um, say so in us allowing a camarada to join. Just even if he's a resident, he's not full blooded Mexican. That's none of their business. Like I said, I met throughout the years many, many camaradas that were black, Indian, white, never claimed a neighborhood, but they turned out to have a lot more respect than a lot of vatos from a neighborhood, right? Remember, us growing up in a neighborhood, we tend to have a bigger chip in our shoulder, right? And that it could be touched a lot easier, right? I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, not to make it long, the decision was taken. I was literally standing there when Sana and Joe told Chino to not get involved. That these vatos this and that, and they were through. And they directed Chino to go ahead and put some cats on them, to put camaradas on them. Of course, Looney wanted to do it, right? But I'll be sincere, the time for his respect was past, right? Like I said, he should have made it personal the minute Joe walked in on that disrespect. With me, it happened a few times and it was real quick settled, right? For many, many reasons, but most of all is because it don't matter what a lot of vatos are, right? There ain't too many people that are willing to boot up, lace up, pick up a piece, and go inside a cell and see where it leads, right? I'll just leave it at that. So I told him, nah, let him take care of it, right? And they, when things happen, Chino made it real clear that it was a directive due to their set tipping and now dirty politicking, which is lying on a camarada, right? Again, Zana and Joe weren't going to take from their pockets due to two vatos that wanted to spread poison, where poison, that type of poison, is not going to be tolerated, point blank. And, well, anyways, they were done, eventually they got hit and they went off to wherever they went off, right? I stayed there with the camarada, stayed there doing his thing. Again, he was moving a lot of stuff out in OC for old man and Joe, right? But I never had an in look on what they were doing, right? Besides what I'm telling you. When I took labs with the homies, I got a few things going with Joe. I got a couple things going with Sana, and it was left at that, right? Don't tell, don't ask, right? Type of thing. So we kept pushing. Again, prison can be a tricky thing. When a camarada tells you his business, we grew up in a world, where we're always nitpicking, looking for an end, on us stepping on each other. You see, that's the thing that they provide downwards towards us, that politicking. Que yo soy el más chingón by stepping on a camarada. At least myself, it was never looked like that, right? Winning was winning for the team, period. But anyways, I just wanted to put the story out real fast and do this in look on what I've been asked, right? Is it true that when you're wrestling you get treated so and so way, you get minimized, this and that? No, it's a complete lie. Again, it came straight from a Billy. That neighborhood trip stops point blank the minute you hit county jail, any county jail, way before you hit CDC. One movement, one push, Campol, Sureño causa. And believe me, there ain't no camarada that has the title to say who can represent the causa. Because at the end of the day, remember, we don't run our program. We might say we do, but Billy's, the Tecatos, they're the ones that run our program. We can't even input our our thoughts or inlook on things, because it's going to be used against you, believe me. But again, be wise. I always say it and I'll say it. This is a perfect example of dirty vatos, talking about camaradas in general, right? That get out to your neighborhood and they start spreading lies. You see, that opens a door. Let's say you pick up something, you end up headed to prison. They already inflicted poison in your head. So when this percentage tells, of course, you're gonna go along with what your homie tell you. But again, be wise. Be smart on those who get out. They try to play a part to look good in your eyes by filling you with lies. Stay smart, stay true to yourself, and loyal to loved ones.